It's early May, and I'm gonna be doing a check on my hives now in a moment. I know I've been kind of on the quiet side. There hasn't been a whole lot for me to update, except that I had with my hives made a lot of installations. I showed in the past this techie hive of mine with essentially temperature sensors, humidity sensors, weight sensor, and a bee flight radar installed on it. And I set up another hive to replace the old boxes that were starting to fall apart. One of the setbacks that may happen this year for me is that I may not have as much honey production because, in part, I had to eventually replace a bunch of old frames that had drawn comb on it with new ones for them to draw out. That is important to do from time to time. The old comb, it starts losing its space. They go from a nice hexagon shape to eventually a round shape, so there's less and less room as a little extra wax buildup happens every time. But the other part of it is that over time, just low-grade chemicals and disease can build up, and so it's also an investment in their long-term health. That's still then a big energy expenditure, because they say to make 1 pound of wax, it takes about the energy to make 6 pounds of honey and resources on it. So that's obviously a major setback in their surplus honey production, but you got to do what you got to do. It's not always going to be up and to the right on the graph. So I'm going to open these guys up and see what's going on. Opening up my first hive, which is actually, as a reminder for someone who followed before, called a double nuke. There actually, it looks like one box from a width standpoint, but there's actually two colonies that are just two separately stacked 4-frame boxes side by side. So they're a little smaller, but the really strong one that I had over the winter was this guy here. I looked at on the east side here, and as I'll show you what I mean by putting in new frames, I've put these guys in, and I'm gonna just gently remove this guy here to show what's going on there. The frame here it hasn't even started to be built up. So this is what a brand new plastic wax foundation frame looks like. So it's all the wood on the outside, but they already put a pre-printed, slightly wax-coated honeycomb appearance on there, so they have a foundation on which to build. But they haven't even started on this. So bad news is that means there's a far cry from any surplus honey available for this. The good news is, for situations like this, is I don't have to worry about swarming one bit, because they will only swarm when they have hit maximum capacity to where they don't feel like they could build out anymore. And so obviously I have all this to go. This frame here on the inside, if we looked at it without even taking it out, I had to scrape off some damaged old comb from it earlier, and it is not very much built out either. There's a little bit of wax on top. They even put a little honey in their store. God bless you guys, filling up honey before you even build wax. But that's still a work in progress too. And then right past it, there is another completely empty one, and beyond that I could tell you that there's another one kind of like this, only slightly built out. So this whole top box is not used very much yet, but that's okay. That gives them some room to build up, and I'll try to find the queen on her. On the next box down, they are building out some comb in some areas, but then sometimes with new frames you find that they kind of do a what the heck kind of moment here. You see stuff sticking out like this. That's certainly not organized comb. You know, everything around it is nice and organized. This is just kind of randomness. So what I always do, and it's usually recommended, is to just scrape that off, make them start over. And so that way they'll have more efficient process, and it won't start building up into the second frame next to it as much. And Again, they were probably, I don't know, assuming that there was just too much open space somewhere, but they kind of got a little disoriented. So a little correction like that, and things can get right back in gear for them. But yeah, this is getting built out. You see where the other frames, there's black plastic unbuilt. That's still the case down here, but look at right above it. They're building out new wax on this guy, so things are going well. Of course, it sometimes comes down to being on the last frame of the last box where you might find the queen, and that's where she actually is. I'm not even going to take it out and just see if I can zoom in on her. Sorry guys, losing my orientation here. She's got a red dot on her. Red was last year's queen's marking dots. That way, if you are marking your queens with a colored paint dot, you know how old they are. This year, 2025, they'll be marking them blue. So she's in there. She kind of dove in under a bunch of bees, maybe on the other side of the frame, but she's there, and I saw other eggs going on, so things are going well with this one. I'm not going to go too far, but what I am going to do is I'm going to scramble up and mix up some of those empty frames on the top with some filled frames to entice them to work a little harder on filling them. It's going to introduce a little chaos, but also, again, add on to the empty feeling that they want to stick around and fill it up. So that's going to make them lose a couple days of productivity, because I'm just going to rearrange everything, and they do not like that. They like things the way they organized it, but again, it'll probably speed up some of the filling process. But that's the thing with the hive one. Now, moving into the second hive, there's a problem here because there's almost no brood, and I couldn't find a queen. Most of the brood had emerged, so I think the queen had died off. So what I am looking at is trying to replace her by adding some brood frames from another hive, so they can raise their own queen, because they can raise any queen from an egg. That they just have to feed it royal jelly throughout the entire larval stage, and it will develop into a new queen. So I went into my strong hive, techie hive, to retrieve one, because I figured this would be the first shot at it. And it had its own concern, which I did notice on my scale, that the weight had plateaued. It hadn't increased much anymore. And I thought that was kind of peculiar, because I actually had added some frames of that were open for them to fill up so they wouldn't swarm. However, here is an example. I'm going to try to blow a little smoke on these guys, drive them down a little bit, and pick up the frame to show what was going on here. That despite me adding open frames, try to set this down so I can show you, there are swarm cells on the bottom. You see these cool looking, well, not from my perspective, very cool looking big cells. Those are queen cells on the bottom that are classic for a colony that is preparing to swarm. This means usually the launch sequence is already operated. It's really hard. You can't just kill off the swarm cells and say, okay, you guys keep going, because they may be already not feeding the queen anymore. She may be lightening up on and lowering her egg production. In other words, the launch sequence may already be activated, and if I just kill them off, they could send off without any replacement queen, which would be a disaster for this thing. But what I'm going to do is I already confirmed that there is no queen on this particular frame. So I'm going to move this one with the developing queen cells into this hive, because now they don't even have to raise a new queen from an egg. They've already got some developing cells in there, so that'll make it faster. And I'm going to try to find the queen in here and actually move her to a brand new hive that will effectively be, with a bunch of bees, that will be effectively creating an artificial swarm. She will have felt like she's already moved somewhere else, so will have the bees that have gone with her, and it'll prevent me from losing them all. So I'm going to be on a project for looking for her. But this is the swarm season, and this is how it goes. So it was a good thing I opened it up, but there was a hint on my scale that it wasn't growing more and more in weight, and despite the fact that it's nectar flow season, they should be bringing more and more nectar and increasing the weight of the hive all the time, but they are probably in preparation mode. So those are some of the lessons of the day so far. Well, after 2 full rounds of looking through all the frames, and now I got a bunch of cranky bees, I did not find the queen. It's not too uncommon for me. I'm not the best queen spotter in the world, but I'm pretty sure I marked this girl. Also been a bad record keeper this year. Just a little smoke to keep you guys chilled out. But the thing is, there's also, even though there's brood and even some open brood, meaning they're not in a pupa stage, that means they're probably in the past 5 days or so they were hatched. I did not see any eggs in here, which means eggs are essentially 1 to 3 days old. That tells me that it's very likely that the queen already swarmed, even though there's a pretty good number of bees. And that also means is that I have to leave those queen cups alone, with the exception of the one I put over here to loan to raise a new queen for this colony. And but there's plenty to go around to raise a new queen for this one. I would only speculate. I could be wrong, I often am, but I'm only speculating because I still saw a lot of open, unfilled frames. But I think before this week, we had a couple weeks of very cold, rainy weather, and I think that the bees, unable to go outside to forage a lot, were all crowded in there, and they felt crowded almost artificially so, because in decent weather there are a good number of them out going foraging, so there's that part of it. But I think that it is a thing that after a long period of bad weather, they can actually have a tendency to swarm right afterwards. So I think I already lost some bees, even though there's a pretty good number here. Still frames to fill in, so new queens to hatch out from their pupa stage, to emerge from that. Bodes very badly for honey production for this one, and of course for this one. We're kind of not in a automatic laying mode, but it's a fresh start. And I'm going to put everything back together. Still have to put on the, I guess to show how the thermometer works here. I need to get a new piece of plastic for it, but they already kind of chewed this thing up. But for now, I was having a cover plastic so they wouldn't eat it up. But I end up resting this temperature humidity sensor on top of there. And then I'm actually going to put, this is kind of a weird setup for this because I need a little space for that thing. I'm going to put the inner cover on first, because otherwise there actually is no room for that temperature humidity sensor to rest. And then I'm going to put a queen excluder on top of that, and the honey super, which is over there, which I'm not super optimistic about, but I'm sure there's some in there. I'm sure they're going to continue to build up, and maybe if there's a fast rebuild, I may still be able to get something this year out of this hive. But that's exactly what I didn't want to have. And what also means is I better go into my computer program and look at the bee flight activity to see if I could spot something that suggested a swarm. I'm still in learning phase on that bee radar, but that's what it's there for. So that is I think the lesson for the week here. This is kind of what some of the things are going on in bee season, especially during the swarm season. Still a few more hives to check out. This one was queenless, and so I want to see how the queen came out on that. I won't record that, and then I'll just check on that other last hive routinely. So that's the update right now, and this is definitely a negative predictor for honey harvest, just for your information. Alright, well, I said I was not going to video anymore, but I had to lie here just to show something funny. I said I was going to explore this one where I had raised a new queen and wanted to find her, and yeah, there's brood everywhere in here. Like a whole bunch, and only on one half though, the whole hive wasn't filled up. So I found the queen and I took her to mark her. This, the colors of your blue. So just to show you what the marker thing is, look like I actually have to catch her with my bare hands and put her in this tube. And there's this little squishy plunger made of really just sponge on there. And what it does is you throw the queen in this thing, you kind of squish her up against this top with the plunger, and then you, once she's in the right position, you mark her with a blue dot. And I did mark her, but I think she got out. That was really weird. She must have crawled out because I found her back on this frame here. I don't know how she crawled out of this thing. These holes must be wider than what I thought they were. I was gonna hold her in there until the glue dried, but she got out. Anyways, somehow she got out, and there she is on this frame. Blue dot. Okay. The reason why I thought I was going to film this because I thought for a moment I had two queens. I had the first one trapped in there, and I'm like, how did that happen? But no, it's all good. I only have one queen. It's really rare to have two queens. You have to have like sometimes an enormously high stacked hive with so much space that there's probably the two queens don't ever interact, and they're like functionally two different colonies. But yeah, there she is. So all her attendant bees are taking care of her. So I'm going to put her back in her hive, and I have one healthy queen now. So this one's looking great. Mystery solved. I totally thought there was one still inside that case, but she managed to squeeze her way through it apparently.